They said she mocked the starving poor with her cruel words, "Let them eat cake." But what if she never said it? What if the queen history turned into a villain was really just a girl, married at 14, blamed for everything, and broken by a revolution she didn't start? This is the untold truth of Marie Antoinette, how fashion, politics, and propaganda turned a teenage bride into a national enemy. And if you're drawn to stories where royalty meets ruin, don't forget to hit subscribe. She was born in Austria as Maria Antonia, the youngest daughter of Empress Maria Theresa. At 14, she was sent across Europe to marry the Dauphin of France, Louis XVI, a boy just as awkward and unprepared as she was. The French court welcomed her with cold eyes and high expectations. She didn't speak perfect French. Her clothes weren't Parisian enough. And within weeks, she was expected to carry centuries of alliance on her tiny shoulders. She was just a child. But the crown didn't wait for childhood to end. Versailles was a palace of mirrors, but for Marie Antoinette, it quickly became a trap. Surrounded by rigid traditions, endless eyes, and whispers she couldn't decode, she struggled to find her place. Her husband, shy and distant, barely spoke to her. The court mocked her Austrian roots. And when she failed to produce an heir quickly, the criticism grew vicious. In private, she escaped through fashion, theater, and garden retreats. But every ribbon she wore, every game she played, was watched and twisted. The girl who longed for comfort was already becoming a symbol of excess. France was bleeding money, wars, poor harvests, rising taxes, and the people were growing desperate. But inside Versailles, the queen was seen hosting masked balls, ordering silk gowns, and building a miniature village to play shepherdess. She wasn't the cause of the crisis, but she became its face. Pamphlets accused her of bleeding the treasury dry. Cartoons mocked her spending. The name Madame Deficit spread across Paris. And the worse the economy grew, the more they blamed the foreign queen with powdered hair and jeweled shoes. Her every step became an insult the people could no longer afford. As famine swept across France, one rumor spread faster than fire, that when told the peasants had no bread, Marie Antoinette had laughed and replied, "Let them eat cake." But there's no record she ever said it. The phrase had existed for decades, written earlier in satirical works about nobles. Still, it stuck. Why? Because it captured what people wanted to believe, that the queen was not just wealthy, but heartless. She didn't need to say the words. France had already decided she had. And once a villain is imagined, facts don't stand a chance. In 1781, Marie Antoinette finally gave birth to a son, Louis Joseph, the long-awaited heir. For a brief moment, cheers returned to Versailles. But the relief didn't last. When her daughter died young, people whispered it was divine punishment. When her second son grew sickly, the blame returned to her. Even as a mother, she was seen as a failure. Rumors accused her of neglect, infidelity, and scandal. Leaflets depicted her in vulgar drawings, painting her not just as extravagant, but immoral. She was no longer a queen in the public's eyes. She was France's favorite target. In 1785, a crime shattered what was left of her reputation, and she had nothing to do with it. A forged letter, a stolen necklace worth millions, and a con artist pretending to act on her behalf. The entire affair spiraled out of control, and even when it was proven Marie Antoinette was innocent, the damage was done. The people believed what they wanted, that the queen had tried to secretly buy a necklace while the nation starved. She didn't steal the diamonds, but she wore the blame. And France never forgave her for it. By 1789, the anger boiling in Paris had reached its breaking point. The Bastille fell. Mobs surged. The monarchy trembled. Versailles, once untouchable, was surrounded by thousands demanding bread and justice. On October 5th, a sea of women marched to the palace, furious and starving. They broke through the gates, killed guards, and stormed her chambers. Marie Antoinette escaped with seconds to spare. That night, she stood with her children on the palace balcony, facing a crowd that once adored her but now screamed for her head. The queen was no longer royal. She was prey. After that night, the royal family was forced to leave Versailles and relocate to the Tuileries Palace in Paris, under watch, under control, and under suspicion. Marie Antoinette's world shrank from golden halls to guarded rooms. Every letter she wrote was intercepted. Every visitor screened. The once powerful queen now needed permission to walk in her own garden. She tried to remain dignified, dressing plainly, educating her children, but outside the palace, she was still painted as a monster. To the revolution, she wasn't a prisoner. She was the revolution's proof that justice was coming down. In June 1791, the royal family made a desperate attempt to flee. Disguised and hidden in a carriage, they traveled toward the Austrian border, towards safety. But at a small town called Varennes, they were recognized, captured, brought back in shame. The escape shattered what little sympathy remained. Marie Antoinette, once called the Austrian princess, was now branded a traitor to France. Her face, printed on playing cards, was torn and spit on in the streets. She hadn't just tried to flee the city. They believed she tried to flee justice. In 1792, the monarchy was formally abolished. The royal titles vanished. Louis XVI became Citizen Louis Capet, and Marie Antoinette was now just the widow Capet. Later that year, Louis was tried for treason and executed by guillotine. Marie was forced to watch from afar as the blade took her husband's life, and the crowd cheered. Her son was taken from her. Her daughter remained imprisoned. And the once sparkling Queen of Versailles now sat alone in a stone cell, dressed in gray, her hair cropped, her body aching, and the end drawing near. In October 1793, Marie Antoinette was dragged before the Revolutionary Tribunal. The charges were brutal: treason, conspiracy, theft, and even the vile accusation that she had harmed her own son. She stood pale, thin, and silent as the prosecutors twisted every moment of her past into proof of guilt. When they accused her of harming her child, she didn't weep. She simply said, "I appeal to every mother here." The courtroom fell silent. But it didn't matter. The verdict had been written before the trial began. She was sentenced to die. On the morning of October 16, 1793, Marie Antoinette was led from her cell. Her hair was cut, her hands bound. She wore a simple white dress, the color of mourning for queens. Unlike her husband, who had been taken by carriage, she was forced to ride in an open cart through the streets of Paris. The crowd shouted insults, threw stones, laughed. But she kept her head high. Witnesses said she looked neither left nor right. She did not scream. She did not beg. After years of being mocked for luxury, she was now facing death in silence. The scaffold. Marie Antoinette climbed the steps slowly, her hands still tied. As she approached the executioner, she accidentally stepped on his foot and whispered, "Pardon me, sir. I did not do it on purpose." Those were her last words. No dramatic speech, no protest, just politeness, even in death. Moments later, the blade fell. The crowd roared. The Queen of France, once loved, then loathed, was gone. Her body was thrown into an unmarked grave. No crown, no monument, just silence, where once there was music, silk, and light. In the years after her death, the world began to question the story it had told about Marie Antoinette. Historians searched for proof of the infamous quote, "Let them eat cake," and found none. Letters revealed a mother desperate to protect her children, a wife isolated from power, and a girl thrust too early into a world she didn't shape, but paid for. She was no saint, but she wasn't the monster the revolution made her out to be. She was a scapegoat in pearls, a warning in a white dress, and a name history had painted in cruelty. Marie Antoinette didn't ruin France. She didn't cause the famine. She didn't say the words that sealed her fate. But she represented everything the people wanted to destroy: privilege, excess, detachment. And so, they made her the villain. Easier to blame the queen than face a broken system. Easier to guillotine a woman than rebuild a kingdom. In the end, she wasn't remembered for what she did, but for what others needed her to be. A symbol, a myth, a headline. And behind it all, she was just a girl who never stood a chance. A queen by birth, a lesson by death.